The biggest surprise in this movie is that you don't have to wait till the end of the credits for anything. I know, right? Avengers Age of Ultron is written and directed by Joss Whedon and stars everybody from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with some new additions including Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, Andy Serkis, and features the voice of James Spader. And in Avengers Age of Ultron, Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., creates this artificial intelligence called Ultron, voiced by James Spader, with the objective of protecting the Earth. But Ultron becomes sentient and assesses that the biggest threat to the Earth is humanity itself and plans to wipe out humanity. Now, this is already the 11th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and contrary to what a lot of people believe, this is not the end of Phase 2. Ant-Man is the end of Phase 2, and I will stick by that because I don't want to downplay Ant-Man. And just like a lot of Marvel movies, Avengers Age of Ultron looks great, it has great acting in it, but I do think it's kind of brought down by the fact that it's ultimately really messy, I think. First of all, like I mentioned, it does look great, pretty much like every other Marvel movie out there today. The destruction is just gloriously massive. A lot of the characters look a lot better as well, especially the Hulk, who looks very, very realistic. He really does look like Mark Ruffalo also. It's really cool also what they do with the powers of Quicksilver, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Scarlet Witch, played by Elizabeth Olsen. Like, it feels like they have like this magical aura about them, and it really makes them feel new and separate from the old Avengers. Compared to the first Avengers movie, which had a Chitauri and Loki and whatnot, the threats in Age of Ultron are very robotic and they're very kind of down on Earth. So the robot designs are very, very intricately designed, especially the Hulkbuster armor, which is fantastic to look at. It's also always really cool to see how the new costumes that the Avengers get somehow add to their powers, like how Captain America, played by Chris Evans, like he has this magnet thing that allows him to get back his shield. And Hawkeye, played by Jeremy Renner, has that cool thing you saw in the trailer that you thought was like a claw, but it wasn't. I don't know how to describe it. But yeah, and despite all the CGI and whatnot, I'm really thankful that there are still practical effects, namely with Vision, played by Paul Bettany, who is all practical. It's fantastic to look at. And of course, this cast is great, as always. Like, everyone here is so, dedicated to playing their characters, and, they are their characters at this point. But there are quite a few standouts, including Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner, who really plays scared very, very well in this movie. Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye becomes really funny and really just likable in the fact that they made him really, really human here as well. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow is very, very good. Also, Don Cheadle as War Machine is surprisingly very funny. Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch manages to portray her character as someone who's very tortured and very complex, which was great to see. Paul Bettany as Vision is fantastic because he's very serene, but at the same time his presence is just so commanding. Andy Serkis is going to be great in anything he's in. And James Spader as Ultron I was really surprised because he brought this unexpected like charisma to the role of Ultron, which I actually welcome very much and I'm very, very happy with. Age of Ultron is also much funnier than you might expect it to be. And Whedon really knows how to balance like all these characters, give them all great action moments and give them all like funny lines as well. He really manages to keep them all relevant at the same time, and the tone never gets too dark. In fact, I do think that he does manage to keep the tone balanced in such a way that it allows for both the humor and the urgency of the situation to really kind of coexist equally. And as a director, I think that Joss Whedon really directs action just extremely well at this point. The way he directs it gets just increasingly more inventive as it goes on. And the best moments in the movie really are when he gets the Avengers together and they fight together and they have like combos together. It's really, really great. However, I do have flaws with the movie. The more I thought about the movie, the more these flaws started to pop out to me. For one, I really kind of wanted more character development. I realize that's kind of like a nitpicky comment, but in my opinion, just way too much stuff happened in this movie for the characters not to change that much. And I really wish they put more like visible consequences from the previous movies here, just so we got an idea of everything's connected. Like it feels like Iron Man 3 didn't even need to happen at this point. But yeah, like it just felt so much like a setup to the future of the series that I wish they kind of harkened back more to the past as well. But my bigger problem really is with the editing by Jeffrey Ford and Lisa Lasek. Like, it's just really, really messy in my opinion. Because I heard that Joss Whedon's like initial cut for this movie was like 3 hours long or longer, and it really shows. And what most movies do to get rid of this problem is that they take out big chunks of the movie, like unnecessary parts. But here it feels like they took out unnecessary parts and then like took out tiny bits from every single scene. So it just feels so rushed the way it's cut together. The action is occasionally somewhat incomprehensible. The flashbacks that the characters have are super like abrupt and they don't feel organic at all. The way Ultron gets created is really rushed as well, and there are just unnecessary scenes just peppered throughout the movie to help set up the future. In the end though, I would still say that Avengers Age of Ultron is a pretty good movie. I still had a lot of fun with it, don't get me wrong. It still is definitely fun, especially if you're a Marvel fan, but I did have big issues with it. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Avengers Age of Ultron. Have you guys seen it? What do you guys think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.